Hey guys, I'm Cecily Genie here, aka Mustached Tom, here to review the movie Peter Pan and Wendy. If you end up enjoying this full movie review, then please feel free to like, comment, and subscribe. Also make sure to check out those links in the description. One will head you over to my petition to help out smaller YouTubers. Second and third to my Patreon and PayPal where you can help support me and my channel directly. And fourth to my Discord server where we can chill, collab, and do all that cool stuff for free. And chilling will be reminded at the end of the review. With all that out of the way, let's get into Peter Pan and Wendy. So, of course, I have seen the trailer for this pop up quite a few times, and with it being a Disney movie, it came with some controversies. Outside of it being another live-action adaptation, which I'm sure is frustrating the hell out of people at this point, but then again, Peter Pan is one of those stories that has been live-action before, so I'm not sure how much that can hold up in a movie that's already done it more than once, probably. But nonetheless, there are also other controversies outside of that, though. That, of course, being certain individuals, when looking upon the trailer and noticing that the Lost Boys comprised of girls, and that made those individuals, aka certain political conservatives, lose their shit. Which I find hilarious, considering that there are other groups with that sort of connotation that never gets brought up. Like, for example, as a recent one, The Boys, which contains female characters within that group. And if you need a vintage example, well, don't worry, I still have you covered, X-Men. So, I'm sorry that the reality of, is that you can just separate sex and gender. It's almost as if. That's crazy. So I didn't have to. I thought that they were gonna go for a more tomboy route, which they could have made a play off of that if they really wanted to, on top of that if they wanted to, but I don't think that was even really necessary, as of course a group name such as that doesn't imply the rule. So I thought that immediate criticism was stupid, just as saying, well, therefore it's woke, therefore it's bad, which is, again, very weak review criticism. And of course, it doesn't actually even end there, because in this movie, Tinkerbell is been race swapped to be black. But her character being swapped doesn't actually change really much of anything that much. So, I don't know. I thought that the standard was that you would have a point if the story was, it required race to be a component of the story, or, I don't know, something along those lines. I thought that was the standard. But I guess you can just say that and then break that when it's fantasy, I guess. I guess that's how that works. But, yeah, so obviously I'm making a reference to characters like Mulan and Pocahontas, which are both based on real characters, but are both also Disney, which I thought I would keep it in line with that. And someone even brought up another example, which I thought was baffling to even do, which is like someone actually claimed, like, why don't you race swap the Princess Frog movie and for her to be white? Well, first and foremost, there's already a white character in that movie, so the whole point is that to show a further separation between a white privileged woman that's rich and then a poor black woman living in New Orleans, as that's sort of the part of the story. But, I'm sure that's not considered with these things. Anyway, we're here to talk about Peter Pan and Wendy. Now, of course, there have been several adaptations of Peter Pan and Wendy. The previous one that I had seen was just called Pan, and it wasn't that great. It seemed to try to strike its own sort of version of the story by going off into its own thing, and it just didn't work out that well. So, even I had my trepidations, don't get me wrong, but I was willing to look at this movie and still look at it as objectively as I possibly can. So, the movie begins with two kids playing, this being the two young siblings, Michael and, forget the other sibling's name, but I did have it in my notes, so I'll get to that later on. But we have a family household, and we meet Wendy getting ready to travel. So she's essentially growing up and getting ready to move out or go to some school. I guess that's like conjoined a part of like in this, what's going on here. Anyway, so as she's sort of pondering and wandering, the two boys are sword fighting, and she gets a little too invested, and she gets into the game, but breaks the window. So the father comes up and collects all the swords and tells them that she needs to grow up in that sort of way. Later on, the mother joins her when she's alone, and this is when Wendy breaks down, really not wanting to leave or grow up in that way. And the mother replies that she must be a good older sister. So she sort of retorts that she doesn't want the same life that her mom does, which is pretty typical. And then we hear the mom sing a lullaby for them to be a goodnight song. So there are 3 musical numbers in this movie. I'm not sure if that qualifies it as a musical, but nonetheless, I will say the later music songs get really interesting, because this one's more, I believe this one's a custom from the original movie, I think, if I remember it correctly. It's been a while. Anyway, we're introduced to Tinkerbell, who sprays Wendy with some pixie dust, but she gets caught in the process. But Peter Pan quickly arrives shortly after, and sort of like the original movie, he begins to look around for his shadow. This is something that happens. And once he's done catching it, he tells her that he's been waiting for Wendy to say that she doesn't want to grow up. So he's kind of been studying her just to see if she would be one of those individuals, is sort of like what he's alluding to here. In the process of making their way out into like this hallway, he I guess injures himself trying to collect his shadow art from her. I forget which one it was, but nonetheless, when she does this, or when he does it, one of the 2 siblings, I believe the older one, says that my mom typically kisses it better, and then he's like, oh, offer a kiss, and then this is where Wendy offers up a thimble to him and tells him that that's what a kiss just is, and he believes her at this juncture. This is again very akin to very vintage Peter Pan, so they are not straying too far from the source material as far as I'm aware of it. Anyways, so as we see, Tinkerbell has already puffed them all up with their pixie dust. Peter Pan tells them to think happy thoughts and everything will be a-okay. So they are able to fly, And he says to do the thing where it's like, straight on till morning. I forget the full line, but that's like a part of it. Like the ending half of it, anyway. Nonetheless, they end up in a Neverland where they see some mermaids and then get shot up by pirates not too long after. And then we are introduced to Shmi and Hook. And Hook is able to spot Peter Pan in the air, and the four that are in the air get blown backwards based off of the angling by the cannon. So yeah, John and Michael get a little bit separated from Wendy, because that's where I wrote their names here in my notes. So this is where we meet again the Lost Boys, which you saw the trailer and wherever, what I was talking about is alluded to. There are girls among that group who are just like, whatever, it's just a name of our group. It's irrelevant. We're just a part of this group. And Wendy kind of just responds, yeah, it doesn't really make a difference. And she is technically correct. It really doesn't. It doesn't change the story in the slightest. The only thing that needs to be maintained is that Wendy just needs to be the oldest among them, which is still true. Probably, maybe besides Tiger Lily, who is present in the story, but her character is sort of like a side character, if anything else. And, they don't have the Indian song from the original, which I'm pretty sure they were like, ooh, should probably take that song out, I guess. So yeah. So anyways, we see that the two boys are captured by Shmi, or Shmi brings them inside to the cabin. All the while, Hook tells the two of them that he has a set of rules, and one of them includes, of course, no clocks. This is a vintage part of his character, obviously. Oh. Hold on, I got a little more lost in my notes here. Give me a second. Okay. So, they head for Skull Rock. And during their travels, they sing a little pirate song. This is their second song, and I don't remember this song, so I'm thinking this must be a new one. And it sounds pretty intriguing, I guess. Nonetheless, Tiger Lily is like leading the rest of the group that's up there. All the while, two siblings are tied up, and the crew that are there spot a new pirate, and it doesn't take long for them to figure out that this is Peter Pan in disguise. He was there, he managed to finagle his way in there somehow, but whatever. They end up fighting. All the while, Tinkerbell makes her way over to the boys. All the while, Hook attacks the shadow, which, interestingly, it affects Peter Pan. So Wendy calls out to him to sort of serve as a distraction, and begins to answer him every time he tries to allude to a part of who he is. But before anything else can come of that, the crocodile shows up, and of course that is, of course, a part of the vintage story as well. So, again, pretty close to the original so far. Or at least the animated one, the original Disney animated one I'm talking about here. Anyways, Hook runs it for it because he doesn't want anything to do with that. All the while, Peter Pan carries a lot of them, or a few of them, away. And of course, he does his vintage crow call, which I will not attempt to do. Anyway, But she's a bit upset because he was showboating, so she gives him a little slap to get him to, like, you know, acknowledge that, but he kind of really doesn't at this point. Nonetheless, one of the kids mentions how Hook wasn't always Hook, which kind of brings to an attention of, like, something's going on here. All the while, Tiger Lily has a little one-on-one moment with Wendy, where she tells her that she essentially needs to... She's in kin with telling Wendy that she needs to sort of find her own path in her own unique way. All the while, they go back to Peter Pan's hideout where the kids ask Wendy to share a story. But she's way more fascinated about trying to figure out what that kid was talking about, so she's asking about Hook. Later on that night, she sings the same lullaby we hear from before. But unfortunately, Hook is nearby and hears the song. All the while, we see that Tinkerbell is sort of gesturing that to Wendy that Peter Pan doesn't fully understand her, but when she tries to make contact with Peter Pan, he returns a different object, a kiss, quote-unquote, back to her. So we learn up here, and I think this is new material. I don't remember this being the case. I could be. It's been a while since I've seen the original Peter Pan, but in this version it appears that Hook was the original first lost boy, and that him and Peter Pan were originally friends, and then Hook left and came back all grown up. It would appear to be the full backstory of Hook. And again, I don't remember this from the original, so I think this is new material, which I think is actually pretty interesting how they resolve that aspect, or, you know, make the two characters connected in this sort of way. But Pan says he grew up evil. Unfortunately, during their way back down, all the kids are captured, including Wendy herself, and Hook is ready to move on up. And he even enters the room and gets slashes Peter Pan back down. And furthermore, Tinkerbell gets captured. So we see that the shadow removes itself from Peter Pan after some significant amount of time, and sort of runs off to get Tiger Lily. So it's her that returns back, riding her horse. All the while, Hook seems to be humming the song, the lullaby we hear repeated quite a few times here at this point. So this is where he gets a moment with Wendy where he talks about how he was banished and how he missed his own mom, and that's why he was banished, because he sort of had that feeling of wanting to grow up. Or just be reunited at the very most. And he goes on about how he wants to be shown a kid who knows right from wrong versus when you grow up and start really figuring out how that might not matter as much anymore, or something like that anyway. So as Wendy sees that everyone else is going to be like brought to like to be overboard, she volunteers to take that plunge. So the pirates comply by taking her. All the while, Tiger Lily heals up Peter Pan. All the while Wendy's being told to walk the plank, they begin to sing their third different song, which again is a rather unique song. The lyrics of this one and the other pirate song just really came on very interestingly, I suppose. Nonetheless, she thinks happy thoughts, and we see that Tinkerbell was left alone, so this bought her enough time to escape, because Smee was getting into the song. So she was reinvigorated with the magic, and so she was able to fly or hover right beneath the board so that she wouldn't get noted right away. So Hook walks the plank to see that it has been filled with fairy dust. And then, this is a bit interesting, the entire ship begins to fly, as it's been covered in pixie dust. Just as that happens, Peter Pan arrives on the scene, and he tells Hook that it wasn't any of his showboating or magic or any of that stuff. It was just one of his friends helping him out get back up, which in this case that's a reference to Tiger Lily, I'm assuming, since she was the one that helped. So he's finally sort of coming around to admitting that he needs help. But Tiger Lily herself joins in the battle. So too do the Lost Boys. The squad. So, they get told to hold on as the ship almost crashes, but the two youngest siblings take control of the helm, and then Wendy helps to help flip it over with Tiger Lily. So all the pirates fall off. And we see that she's able to, because I saw some criticisms about this, she was able during a sword fight to push up against these two sword fighters that were bigger than her, because she had the magic that was still from the fairy, so she boosted herself with that extra oomph. Anyway, so she catches Peter and is able to return him some more fairy magic, so now he can fly again. But Pan, noticing how the situation is getting pretty hectic, is actually wanting Hook to stop. But Hook doesn't want to, and his hook comes off, and thus he falls into the water, unable to think of any happy thoughts, as the ship continues to sort of just fly, and begins to fly back, as she eventually convinces the entire group to come back with them, including Peter Pan himself. So they return to their home, where Wendy immediately hugs her mom. All the kids end up there, so, they have to deal with that. But Peter Pan is still on the roof. It shows that this is indeed the house that he grew up in himself, some time ago, very likely. Which probably is one of the reasons why he would be checking up on Wendy specifically. But, nonetheless, Wendy's trying to convince him by telling him that to grow up, it's going to be a big adventure. But, nonetheless, Peter Pan decides to fly off, because it's still not quite enough for him. This is where we get the only line from Tinkerbell thanking Wendy for being able to listen to her properly. And so she kind of joins Peter Pan. All the while, we sort of see the family, see the boat sort of make its way to return to Neverland. And that was Peter Pan and Wendy. And I will say, that was pleasantly really close to the original source material. With a little added, feature of Hook being a lost boy. Because, again, I don't remember that from the original, again. I could be wrong, but again, it's been a while. But yeah, I found this movie actually kind of solid. Yeah, the acting is fine. All the complaints about wokeness, of course, that's always stupid. So that none of that stuff changes anything in the story. So, in this particular story, I should specify anyway. But that is where I say, yeah, this is actually pretty fine. And I'm saying that because other live-action adaptations have also been something that has been of contention for Disney as of, well, a while now. Considering that their live-action adaptations haven't been doing the best as of lately. Including Pinocchio and stuff that came up before Pinocchio, and who knows if the next one will be any different from those. But I will say for this one, it was actually, again, pretty decent. I would actually give it a solid, 6 out of 10, maybe 7 out of 10. I would have to think, I'd probably lean it towards the 6 for now, but maybe closer to a 7. Again, somewhere in between there, probably. But yeah, overall, pretty positive. Which is, I guess, pretty rare for a live-action adaptation anyway, for Disney, again. So, yeah. This actually might be, technically, at least among the more recent live-action adaptations Disney's have been doing, probably one of the better ones, if not one of the best ones to come out of the batch we have been overburdened and overloaded with over the past few years. So, yeah, I would say it's actually, pretty decent. And that's my full review of Peter Pan and Wendy. And if you ended up enjoying this full review, then please feel free to like, comment, and subscribe. Also make sure to check out those links in the description. One will head you over to my petition to help out smaller YouTubers, second third to my Patreon and PayPal where you can help support me and my channel, and fourth to my Discord server. Any and all donations are greatly appreciated. And until next time everyone, bye-bye.